Themba Gorimbo knocked out Pete Rodriguez in spectacular fashion last night in the first round at UFC Vegas 85, and then he called his shot. In the post-fight interview with Daniel Cormier, when DC asked him how long does he think it's going to take for him to recognize his dream of becoming a UFC champion, Themba Gorimbo shocked the world when he said, by the end of this year, by the end of 2024, can he do it? We're going to talk about that here today. I'm also going to discuss who I think should be next for Themba Gorimbo, and I'm also going to give my thoughts on some of the other fights that happened last night at UFC Vegas 85. But before we get into that, folks, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and ring that notification bell so you do not miss the hot content that's coming your way from ChampMind Studios this year and beyond. All right, let's talk about UFC Vegas 85. I thought it was a pretty solid night of fights overall. Some weird stuff going on with the judging, and certainly some funny business going on in the main event between Roman Dolidze and Nassourdine Imavov. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty entertaining night of fights. I didn't do great with my picks. I did pretty horrible, let's be honest. Had some very bad reads last night, and it was almost as if some of these fighters were watching my breakdown video earlier in the week, and they were like, you know what, fuck this guy. Like, I'm going to prove him wrong. Because almost every negative thing that I said about a fighter in that breakdown video, they debunked it in their performance. For example, Molly McCann. I said Molly McCann was the most overrated fighter on the roster. I said she had no ground game whatsoever. She goes out there, takes Diana Delbita down at will, slams her at one point, and nearly snaps her arm in half with an armbar finish. So good for her. Listen, I don't like being negative. I don't like putting fighters down. And when I do that, it's not personal. It's not as if I have any kind of personal vendetta against them. I actually want to see every athlete that competes in the sport do well and recognize their dreams and recognize success. So happy for Molly McCann. She proved me wrong in the most middle finger way she could. And she looks great as a strawweight, you know, cutting down to women's strawweight, 115. She looks absolutely shredded and looks like she could be a potential contender in that weight class. You know, time will tell. We'll see. We'll see if she could put it all together. Certainly looked phenomenal last night. Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke. He was another guy that I was hating on, and I was hating on him pretty badly. I said this guy was not UFC level, that Gilbert Urbina was going to run through him. I looked like an absolute idiot last night because Chuck Buffalo ran through Gilbert. He starched Gilbert Urbina last night. His boxing looked phenomenal. Not only did he look like he belongs in the UFC, but guys, he looks like somebody that could potentially be fighting for a title one day, or at the very least, crack into that top 15 very soon. So I went from a hater to a fan of Charles Radke last night, and more power to him. And just like Themba Gorimbo in the post-fight interview, he called his shot. He told DC, I'm coming for that welterweight title. He said 2024, my coach and my teammate Bilal Muhammad is going to get that title first. And then in 2025, I'm coming after it. And I know that might sound crazy. I know that might sound kind of silly for a guy to say who's not ranked, who's only had 2 fights in the UFC. But I love that. I love when fighters speak things into existence and back it up in the octagon. And time will tell. Listen, we will see if he can continue to back that up. Same with Themba Gorimbo. But speaking of Themba Gorimbo, man, out of all the performances on the card last night, including Renato Moicano's hilarious post-fight interview, out of everything that happened last night, in my opinion, the guy that stole the show was Themba Gorimbo. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, listen, what's the big deal about knocking out a guy like Pete Rodriguez? Pete Rodriguez is a bum. Kind of harsh. I don't know if I would call him that. The guy's a warrior. The guy took the fight on short notice. He did his job. He showed up. He looked like he was in great shape. But I would agree, he's not anywhere near that upper echelon of that welterweight division. So I get it. I'm not trying to say like, oh, he knocked this guy out, so let's just automatically propel him all the way up the rankings and give him a title shot, and that would be silly. So I'm not saying that at all. But I want to take a second to analyze where this guy came from. Because this is the same guy that came from nothing, no money whatsoever, migrated to the United States from Zimbabwe with nothing but a dream. Nothing but a dream to become a UFC champion. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to you? It probably reminds you of another African fighter that had the same dream, that had a very similar bank account, Francis Ngannou. And look what he did. Now, am I saying Themba Gorimbo is going to become welterweight champion, going to become as big of a star as Francis Ngannou? I don't know. I don't know, but I'll tell you this much. This is a guy that's putting all the pieces together right now. He debuted in the UFC and did not look good. He got submitted. He got, I think, guillotine choked by AJ Fletcher in the second round of his UFC debut. AJ Fletcher is a pretty mediocre level fighter. Listen, Themba had a huge reach advantage in that fight, so he looked terrible. I'll be flat out honest with you. He did not look impressive in his UFC debut. But he turned things around quickly, man. I mean, he went from that loss to all of a sudden The Rock is buying this guy an apartment and he's making some noise. He's getting his name out there. He's riding a 2-fight winning streak now and looking like a potential contender in that welterweight division. Did that very quickly. And you might be thinking to yourself, how? How was he able to manifest this in such a short period of time? How was he able to turn that pretty embarrassing loss into the career trajectory that he's on now? Manifestation, the law of attraction. People are laughing. I know people are laughing right now hearing me say that. Let me clarify to you what that is, because there is some misconceptions about what the law of attraction and manifestation actually is. People hear that and think it's all about just thinking things in your mind, thinking positive thoughts, and then automatically those things appearing in your 3D reality. That's not how it works. That's a portion of it. That's part of the recipe in the cookbook of manifestation, but you're leaving out a lot of other things there. You start with that. You start with positive affirmations, writing things down, journaling, putting things down on a piece of paper, being intentional with what you want to get after in life. That's how it starts. But you have to get yourself in that feeling as if you're already there, feeling as if it's yours already, to get your subconscious mind to then get to work and make that happen, to make that happen in your 3D reality. But the key word there, guys, is work. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And Themba Gorimbo, as soon as he started getting into that mindset, getting his subconscious reprogrammed to force himself to push forward and make the adjustments, this guy has turned himself into an absolute machine. And now he's riding a 2-fight win streak. He's got a lot of name recognition now. He's on the up and up. He's a man on a mission. But can he actually become welterweight champion by the end of this year? A lot of people scoffed at that when he said that. They said that's not realistic. And some of his friends and family might be telling him the same thing. They might be saying, listen, Themba, that's not realistic. That's not realistic, brother. Good for you. You're on this path. You're on this win streak. But let's be realistic. I've talked about this on this channel before. Fuck being realistic. Realism is just a way to disguise fear. It's a way to disguise what we're afraid of. And we often say, oh, well, you know what? Like, I want something, but I got to be realistic. I got to be realistic with myself. Your goals should be set so high that they scare you, but they don't stop you. So I love that. I love that he's calling his shot, and I love that he's getting after it. And you know what? Listen, he might not be able to do it because welterweight's stacked. You're talking about a division that has contenders like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Belal Muhammad, some other guys like Rinat Fakhretdinov kind of working his way up in that conversation. Colby Covington is in there still. I mean, obviously he looked like a fool last time out against Leon Edwards. But, he's still a perennial contender. A lot of guys in that division, right? So it's kind of crazy to say for a fighter that has yet to fight somebody ranked that he's going to be the champion by the end of the year. I get that. And I myself don't necessarily believe that's going to happen. But he believes it's going to happen. He believes with passion, with conviction, that he's going to be welterweight champion by the end of 2024. And I hope to see it. I hope to see him do it. It might seem like an impossible thing, but you know what? Every big goal in life looked impossible at first. He does have a path to do it, and it's really going to depend on the matchmaking. I think he's done enough to earn a shot at somebody ranked in that top 15. And if he beats that individual in his next fight, I mean, we got a whole year. He could go on to fight somebody ranked in the top 10, beat that person, and then who knows? I mean, listen, he could realistically be 2 fights away from a title shot given the right matchmaking. As far as who I'd like to see him fight next, I think the fight to make is Neil Magny. Neil Magny, I believe, is ranked number 12 right now in the division. Obviously coming off that spectacular comeback win against Mike Malott. And Neil Magny is, let's be honest, the guy is, and I don't mean this as an insult, he is the gatekeeper of that welterweight division right now. And that's not a knock on Magny at all. This guy is very, very good and has been consistently good for a number of years. If you want to be successful at welterweight, if you want to be the champion in that division, you got to get past Neil Magny. So I think that is the fight to make. Let's do Themba Gorimbo, Neil Magny in, the spring, early summertime, right? If Themba gets past Neil Magny, I think you give him somebody ranked in that top, that top 10. Maybe you give him a guy like I was gonna say Colby Covington, but I just remember their teammates. They trained together out of MMA Masters. But listen, I mean, that hasn't stopped Colby Covington from running his mouth before. He was tight with Jorge Masvidal and he screwed him over. So who's to say Themba doesn't start getting some success in that division? Colby turns on him next. Wouldn't be surprised, right? The guy's a scumbag. Colby Covington, of course. I'm going a little off topic, but listen, fuck that guy. Anyway, I think you do that, right? He gets past Neil Magny. He fights somebody that's ranked in that upper echelon, and you can do that fight in, late summertime frame. He comes out on top. Who knows? The timing might work out for him. He might just manifest that. He might just manifest a welterweight title shot by the end of the year. Maybe for the Madison Square Garden card in November. How remarkable would that be? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it can't be done. Does it sound impossible? Sure. Do I think that it's actually going to happen? Am I willing to put money down on that? No. But I would not be that shocked if Themba Gorimbo was able to manifest it exactly like that. John Jones, Conor McGregor, Themba Gorimbo. What do those 3 people have in common? The law of attraction, manifestation. They believed in it. Francis Ngannou, too. He's another guy. So I know people are laughing. I know people are like, oh, listen, let's pump the brakes. This guy's not that good. We don't know how good this guy is yet. They're gonna talk about that submission loss to AJ Fletcher. They're gonna say as soon as Themba fights somebody in that upper echelon, he's gonna get beaten soundly. He's gonna get humbled. First of all, the guy is very humble. Let me just also recognize that. For as confident as he is, and for as much as he believes in himself, he is staying humble. And that's another reason why I think this guy is going to have a very, very successful career. I do think at some point, Themba Gorimbo will be a UFC champion. Not entirely sure if it's going to be this year, not entirely sure if it's going to be in 2025, but I do think it will happen eventually. I can just tell. I can just tell with certain guys, and I can tell with him. With that being said, guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. Ring that notification bell. And until next time, let's unleash greatness. Boom!